So, mid year is a perfect time to get that clean, fresh slate feeling, do a bit of reflection on the previous quarter and set our intentions for the quarter ahead. Or if you like, I don't know, 6 month goal planning, then the whole rest of the year, I suppose. Hello, welcome. Today we are going to get stuck in. We're going to reflect on everything that's been happening, whether it be the good things, the not so good things, the way we approached both of those things, and then consider what this kind of tells us about ourselves and how we can use this information moving forward. Now, if you want to do this process along with me, then you're going to need something to write with, something to write on, and I would also encourage you to grab any of the notebooks or journals that you've been using for the past 3 months at least. So for me, that'll be my everyday journal. It'll also be my yearly collections journal because there's some information stored in here that will probably be helpful. That will also be my line a day journal for the next 5 years, or my 5 year journal, effectively. In this one, I just do a little summary each day to say what was going on. So when it comes to doing reflection about what's been going on, it's really, really helpful, right? You don't have to have quite a lineup that I have. Like, you don't need to have 3 different planners that you're getting out to peruse through as we go through. If you store everything in your everyday planner, that's totally fine. But it can be very useful to have that handy, just because oftentimes when it comes to trying to remember what's been going on, what's been happening, we're very good at remembering larger key moments, in particular ones that happened maybe in the last week, month, that kind of thing. But when it comes back to the start of the quarter, where things might have happened, maybe you had some really good achievements then, maybe you were going through some really big challenges then. If you don't have access to written down versions of that, oftentimes you will forget what happened. It's cool. It happens to everybody. We're just doing ourselves a favor by getting those journals out. Let's see, what are we doing as we are here setting up your July? Nice. Oh, the Firefly theme is so good. I hope that you love it. Yeah, as said, you do not have to do this reflection process with us. You can just hang out for, I don't know, the vibes, totally fine. So let me know what you're working on. Are you working in your journal? Are you working on housework? Are you just sitting around chilling? All is good. So the first thing we're going to do, though, the way that I like to start my reflections, well, first of all, is with a header, obviously, which is already written in. And you can see I've already written out our section of goals worked on. That's the first thing I like to write down. Like, what goals was I actually working on during this past quarter, just to kind of set the tone for everything else that follows. So it's like, yes, I intended to work on these things, but what actually happened was all this other stuff. So when it comes to thinking about the goals that I worked on, I do want to specify the ones that I did set for myself. Like, which ones did I kind of set out in the last quarter to say, yes, this is the stuff I want to do. But then also, what did I work on alongside that? The ones that maybe came up as the months progressed. They weren't necessarily planned out, but they did get some, I don't know, contact time, I suppose. So in terms of writing, I find it very hard to write like this. So I'm gonna bring my journal down over here. But first thing, goals worked on. For me, that would be making and releasing the goal course. I'm just going to move you here and hopefully I can actually write and talk at you. So make and release the goals course. You can see that my writing in this journal is a little bit different to how I usually do things. Typically, I like to have it as all caps the whole way through. In this one, it's like, nah, I'm just going to write in my everyday scrappy, messy writing. It's to try and help me be a little bit less precious with this journal, to make it so that I'm not spending copious amounts of time trying to decorate it and stuff like that. So I usually just use kind of messier handwriting for it. But that was one of the goals. The other goal was all about weight loss. So lose weight. And I know that's very open-ended. And that's okay, because that's effectively what I worked on. I worked on losing weight in general, in a way that is not going to do my body harm, of course. So alongside that, there were other things that I did work on, though. And to help me out with this, to help me out remembering that, I'm going to refer back to my yearly collections journal, because in here in particular, I have a little space that tells me about which goals I worked on anyway, so that kind of helps. So website revamp is something I worked on, but didn't necessarily set out to work on. So we can put that one down. Website revamp. And what we can also check out is this one here, the 101 things list, and any of the things that got done in those months that we just covered. So that would be January, February, March. Those were the first quarter. So April, May, June. Anything on this list that feels like a goal, really, because some of these are goals, some of them are just like little tidbit type things. Any of the ones that felt like a goal worked on, they can go on the list as well. So that would be something like, let's see, what do we say? April, May. Finally got the deck stained. That was nice, but that wasn't really a goal. It was more like a home project. We can write down that I started a newsletter, so that was good. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, then you should totally do that. We have an episode issue, I suppose. We call them newsletter issues. We have one of those coming out tomorrow. So started a low-key newsletter. Because I wanted it to be low-key because I am not so much a fan of writing. Mainly because I get very persnickety about my writing and I spend a lot of time making it as good as possible and then still come out with spelling errors, but it's cool. But yeah, it takes me a little bit more time than more like a casual chatty video would or something like that. Other things we did, we hosted the readathon. That was a goal worked on. Host a readathon. And I did continue to help my parents declutter for their move. Help Mum and Dad prepare for their move. So that one is very much an ongoing goal because it doesn't happen until like the end of September, which technically means by the end of quarter 3, that goal will be done with. So that's exciting. Help Mum and Dad prepare for their move. Now, I would love to hear, what have you been working on in the past, 3-month period? What kind of goals have you either set yourself and been working on, or they just kind of came up and you worked on them because they came up? Anything like that. Would love to hear it. Let's see. Ooh, fractured ankle. That's not so fun. I hope that your surgery goes well, but yeah, that sounds super rough. I haven't had a broken bone for many moons, and I remember it being awful. I broke my ankle. I wasn't necessarily very good about keeping my cast in the way it was supposed to be kept, which, needless to say, turned out pretty bloody gross. So let's see, mini writing goals. Nice, love that. Have you ever taught a lesson? Well, lesson plan in your journal, or did you do it all digitally? I When you taught, I could read. She lied. I did most of it digitally. I didn't do a lot of lesson planning on paper. I did a lot of like unit planning on paper, but not so much the lesson planning because that one it's just a little easier to write out on a computer. So let's say, oh, working on concept art for your video game. That's so cool. Oh, I hope that that's been fun. I mean, it sounds fun. It's probably like a lot of work as well, but I hope the work is fun and fulfilling. Let's see. Yep. No goals, but just firefighting as things come up. Yeah, completely understand that too. Like sometimes in life, it gives you a whole bunch of extra stuff. And you're like, yeah, thanks. Wasn't really feeling these side quests, but hopefully they went well as can go. Let's see. Paying off your debt and working on financial freedom. Yes, we love that. Excellent work. Let's see. Biggest goal, to get ahead on my lesson planning. Very fair. Yeah, lesson planning is a giant mission. But hopefully it goes well, and hopefully as you kind of build up more of a lesson planned repertoire, it makes it a little bit easier. You can kind of like chop and change bits and steal from previous you, which is nice. So good to hear that you guys are working on some pretty cool stuff. Let's see. Trying to maintain a routine so it wouldn't be super late at night when I get things done. Yeah, I understand that. I also have recently been watching a few videos about the idea of like our natural cycles and how we have people who are like the early birds and then the night owls and like whatever. And then the permanently exhausted pigeons or whatever they're called, and how certain people just have a tendency to work better at certain times of day. I do feel like there's probably some way to train yourself to like do better at other times, but not so much. Not so much something I've been focusing on. Let's see. Short-term goals, nice. Short-term goals are still good. They're still work towards something bigger and better for yourself. We love that. And trying to lose weight for your holiday, completely get that. I'm right there with you. But let's see. So once you've done a little kind of summary of what goals you worked on, right? Just to kind of give yourself that little recap, then what I like to do is note down where am I with them? Like, are they finished? Have I done with them? Are they still in progress? So for some of these, I will be in progress with because, as we said, like mum and dad's move doesn't come up until the end of the quarter. And some of them did actually get finished, which is kind of exciting. Um, let's see. So one, two, three, four, five. 5 boxes in is roughly where I'm going to put it. So helping mum and dad, that is in progress. It's not finished yet. Hosting a readathon is done for this year at least, because that was our first go at the Goober readathon, which was a lot of fun. Started a low-key newsletter. Technically, I started it. Like, the starting of the newsletter is done. The continuation of the newsletter is, well, funnily enough, continuing. Website revamp. I would say that this one is more in progress than it is done. It is technically revamped, I suppose, but it doesn't feel it's not at the point where I would like to check that off and say, "Yes, I did the thing." I would like to make sure it's, I don't know, a little bit more fine-tuned before we get to that point. Let's see. Is your goal setting course something that would be useful for a kid going into high school? I think that the techniques in it are certainly applicable to pretty much anybody of any age. I think that I'm trying to think more so in terms of the language used, and I do a I don't know, toot my own horn, I do a good job of explaining the terms that I'm using and why, like, I use them and how they're being used. So I think that it is still very approachable for people who would be in middle school. It might not necessarily be the extent of goal setting that they feel they need to do at that stage of their lives, but it would also be a very helpful skill set moving into later life. Like, if I had that skill set when I was in high school, I would have done so much better, like, so much better. So lose weight is still in progress. I have been making very slow but steady progress on that one. And make and release the goals course, that one is technically done. Also, if you're curious about the goal course, for anybody who's watching who's curious, there's a link in the description box below, or to the side now because YouTube keeps changing things on me. There's a link in the description box where you can find more information about that. So once we have listed out the goals worked on, right? So we just have that little snapshot summary that gives us kind of like a tone setting for the rest of our reflection. The next thing that I like to focus on are really the wins, the milestones, the good achievements, and all of that kind of stuff. These milestones and wins don't necessarily have to be related to your goals, right? So there are going to be wins and achievements that come up in your life that aren't specifically related to these things, but it is still important to acknowledge the fact that you have done them. All right. Oh, thank you, Laura. That's so nice. I'm glad that you've been enjoying it. Ah, it's been really, really satisfying to see, first of all, people in there working on it, because I'm like, yes, get it. You're going to have this great skill set and be able to totally crush your goals. And then also being able to see their progress as they go through the course, because it tells me, what point they're up to, like which lessons they've completed and stuff. And so seeing people's progress bar creep up, I'm like, yeah, go. You got this. So milestones and achievements, or wins. I can call them wins, because sometimes it doesn't necessarily feel like an achievement that was yours, but it's more something that happened that was positive, right? We want to record all of those. Let's see. Question: is this live recorded? Yes. Hello, coming to you live from sunny Wellington. I don't think it's actually sunny. My curtain's closed. Let's see. First time tuning into Jess's live stream. I'm glad that you could make it. It's always nice to have people here for their first time. So when it comes to your milestones and wins, obviously there are going to be some that come to mind instantly. You're like, yeah, this felt like a good thing. Sometimes it's not going to be very many of them that come to mind instantly. That's okay. That is why we got out all of our other journals, right? So that then we can peruse through those pages and pick out the things that felt like the good stuff. They felt like an accomplishment. They felt like something that you achieved. So for this one, rather than having me sit here on camera, do this and flick through, I'm going to, first of all, zoom you out. And we're going to sit here with I think a 5-minute timer is probably a good idea, because I don't like to leave it so that I'm doing this for too long. Otherwise, I start to kind of like waste time. So if you keep it kind of like time restricted, that's something that I've been using quite a lot to help maintain my focus on whatever it is I'm doing. So we're going to do a 5-minute timer and we're going to write down all of our milestones and wins. Unless, of course, you're doing something else. But then you can use your 5-minute timer to just clean your room, which I honestly should do. But okay, 5 minutes starting now ish. There's less than a minute left. Make sure that you're still on task. All right. So if you were writing them down, hopefully you got yourself some good milestones and wins. I feel like my list isn't complete. I feel like there were other things that happened throughout the quarter that felt like accomplishments. And it's always really nice to do this first because it makes you kind of notice the fact that like, yes, I actually did achieve something. I find that oftentimes we get to the end of a day or a week or sometimes even a month and you're just like, What did I even do?" Like, oh, I you get this feeling like, "I wasted so much time, like, I could have been so much more productive, I could have made so much more progress," and, like, sure, but getting all down on ourselves doesn't really help. Like, I don't enter the new month being like, "Oh, I'm so motivated to do things because I did so badly last month." Like, focusing on that stuff is not going to lead us in the right direction oftentimes. So instead, we want to focus on those wins and achievements. Yes, it's always good to consider the challenges as well and what that taught us, but I like to start on a positive, right? Is this live recorded to watch again? Yes, it is live recorded to watch again. You can watch this after the fact. So if you're here on the replay, hello, Team Replay. Always a pleasure to have you here. And of course, it's always a pleasure to have our livers here too. So yay. But in terms of milestones and wins that I wrote down, so we had moving the newsletter to ConvertKit. That was such a dang mission, but it has been done. It's now working well. I'm getting kind of into the flow of things with how I use that, so that's been really nice. Finding an approachable and nice format for the website. I always thought of setting up the website to be a very daunting thing because I have no real ability to code or anything like that. My level of coding was when we used to use MySpace and you could set like custom templates in MySpace to make your MySpace page look really cool. Like that was the extent of it. I would go and get the custom templates online and then go and delete the parts of code that had watermarks on it. Like that was the version of coding that I did. So to find a nice and approachable way to have a format for the website was really, really pleasing. It made the process a lot easier. I got a new computer because on my list this year has been to fix my computer, and it just got to the point where I'm like, no, this isn't going to work. I'm just going to get a new one. We got the deck stained. We had a fun cocktail night. Now, it might seem odd to put fun cocktail night down on a milestones and wins, but it's something that I've wanted to do for such a long time. So actually getting it done does feel like an accomplishment, right? These things don't have to be huge, hard hitting, like I solved world hunger and lost, I don't know, 20 kilos in 2 weeks and whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be huge mega things. Little progress is still progress. Tiny wins are still wins. We want to write those down. All right. So Google Readathon success. It was really great having people involved in that, and it was really fun to host with Rachel and Monica. So packing over 80 boxes at mum and dad's house in 1 week, that was pretty good. I mean, we did it in a span of like probably only 5 days or something like that. They don't move until the end of September, so that kind of progress feels really exciting. It's like, oh my god, you're actually going to be here. Yay. So we also have noting just down commitment to certain things. So like commitment to my weight loss goal, commitment to the strengthening of the Bujo Buddies book club and the readathon. We also had using my Cricut to make stickers for once, not the ones that I'm using for my headers in July. I went and hand cut all of these with my craft knife. Monica was most displeased with me, but I'm like, you know, if I make it really, really painful for myself and having to cut these up myself, then maybe I'll finally pull finger and actually figure out how to do it. Very excited to watch Tori's video about how to make headers on your Cricut, but that's a later me problem. It's not a problem. It'll be fun. But also just the course launching, right? It's funny that I actually listed this one last because I was so wrapped up in trying to find these small wins because I was like, oh, we need to make sure that we have some little ones on there as well because we need to celebrate those tiny things. But getting the course launched has been a little labor of love, and to actually have it out there now is very exciting. So I'm, pleased to have it out there, pleased to have it all done, pleased to have people coming in and using it and finding success with it. So that's really cool. All right. Once you've done your milestones and wins, you don't have to just give yourself 5 minutes. If you want to, you can literally just pause this video now and continue on with your wins. All good. It's totally fine. I'll be here when you're ready. But next thing we want to do is think about any challenges that we faced, right? Now, when thinking about your challenges, this is not an excuse to throw yourself a pity party. You can do that on your own time. We're here to set goals, okay? So, in terms of the challenges that we faced, I don't want this to be a point where we get really down on ourselves, where we kind of spiral into a negative headspace or anything. You know yourself better than I do, okay? So if there are some things that you just can't write down on the challenges faced because they're gonna bring up too much negativity or, hard emotions for you, don't write it down, okay? But I do find that by considering what challenges you faced, by actually noting them, writing them down, it gives you the opportunity to consider how you can approach them next time. Like, how can I make this not an issue? How can I make it not happen? Or how can I, tweak the way that I approach this so that then it doesn't become more of an issue? Anything like that. Um, when it comes to the challenges faced also, a lot of the time, as you do this process over and over again, like with each quarter or month or however you want to do it, whatever time frame you want to use, you will start to find that similar challenges come up time and time again. But if you don't pay attention to the fact that they're coming up time and time again, you don't really give yourself the opportunity to consider, alrighty, if this is something that's kind of a staple in my life, it's always there. Like, how can I make its impact less? How can I make it so that even though this challenge is happening, because it's come up multiple times for me, even though it comes up, I can kind of weather the storm, or what are the best ways to weather the storm? Okay, but that starts by noticing the fact that the challenge is actually there. Okay, so for this one, you won't necessarily always find stuff in your journals about this, especially if you only use your bullet journal, if you're bullet journaling as a glorified task list. Um, it's cool. We all do it at some point. But if you've gone through and written down notes or thoughts and feelings, that kind of thing in your journal, this can be a really good place to look for those challenges. But you might be able to just pick them off the top of your head, anyways. Oftentimes, we all have a bit of a negativity bias, and noticing the not so good things can become a lot easier than noticing the good things, right? So we've done the hard brain work here and gone and thought about our milestones and wins. Now it's time to think about, well, what else was there? What was the stuff that hindered my progress? What was the stuff that just makes it a little bit more challenging to get this stuff done? Okay. So, again, we're going to set ourselves a timer for this. We're going to give ourselves another 5 minutes. Time restricting just helps keep us focused on task. So, 5 minutes. We're going to go and think about what challenges did we face. You don't have to expand on them. You don't have to unpack them. We just have to name what the challenges were. Okay. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Let's see. So, hopefully you got your challenges written down. Hopefully there weren't too many challenges, but notably there usually are a few. Um, it's just good to pay attention to which ones come up, especially if you do this process repeatedly, time and time again. So, for instance, one that I know that comes up for me a lot is shiny object syndrome. I'm working on projects or goals or whatever else that I want to work on, the ones that I set for myself at the start of the quarter or whenever, and then something else comes up and I'm just like, "You know what? This is the perfect time to take on this entirely new project." I love the idea of new projects. I find it very exciting to start work on a new goal or project, and I often fall victim to piling too many projects on my plate because of that. But because I know this about myself, it means that I can start to consider, well, like, how can I be more mindful of the projects that I'm currently undertaking? How can I maybe set aside time to work on the side projects, the ones that are a bit more exciting because they're new, but also have dedicated time for the ones that I've set for myself in advance. That could be something that I think about. But in terms of the challenges that I wrote down, so falling off on the routine building with healthy habits, I was doing a really good job for a period of time at, getting on and doing my exercise every day, making sure I was intaking a decent amount of water every day. And then there was a point where that just kind of fell away, and I went more into like I'm gonna call it survival mode, even though it wasn't quite as extreme as that, but it was more just like a gotta go fast, gotta get things done. Like you don't have time to drink water, which is ridiculous, but it's fine. It's just these little lies that we tell ourselves. But anywho, so there was that. We have the continuation of computer struggles, which was also something that I wrote down and my challenges faced in my quarter one reflection. So it's kind of good to have the opportunity to note that down again and now realize, well, hey, it's all good because I got a new computer, so it shouldn't be too much more of an issue anymore. I mean, there's also the fact that I have to continue setting up my new computer because it's not finished yet. But anywho, periods of low inclination to work, periods of low motivation, these are ones that come up time and time again. Also, things around prioritization have come up repeatedly as well. Previously, it was more about not prioritizing my work. This is comparing it to my quarter one reflection. So that was not prioritizing my work, not setting aside time to do my work, even though I had made flexibility in my schedule to get certain things done. This time around, though, it was the fact that I prioritized work over other things and felt a little bit of guilt surrounding that. So, for instance, making it that I was not going to bed at reasonable times, like getting into bad habits with sleep routines. Rather, I would be staying up quite late and doing work and stuff. And it's in part because I do enjoy what I do, and that's what makes it so easy to stay up late beyond my times when I'm kind of supposed to be resting and take the times of rest that other people would typically have. I don't know, like weekends. A lot of people get some time off in the weekends. I often work through that just because I really enjoy what I do. But my body still needs rest. It still needs time to recover and fill its cup and stuff like that. And I wasn't really giving my body that time. So that's something that's not too good for me. Another thing would be in terms of this idea of guilt about how I prioritize things. My friend Rachel, she had a baby at the end of last year. Yay, happy them. Um, and I would have really loved to have spent more time in this past, like, 6-month period just being with her effectively. Like, we have a standing appointment. We make sure that we meet up every Wednesday. It's a great time, but I do feel like it would have been nice to take more of an opportunity while she was off from work to just be there effectively. It's funny because, like, that idea, this, like, guilt about how things were prioritized, is kind of in conflict with a milestone that I recorded last quarter, which was about time spent supporting her and her partner as new parents. So it's like, technically speaking, yes, I have spent time with them. I have spent time supporting them, and that's something that I feel good about. But it doesn't stop the fact that one of the challenges that I faced was guilt over not spending more time with them. So even if something does feel like a win, it can still have like certain feelings associated with it, ones that are possibly beyond your control a bit, that do feel like challenges. Okay, so like not everything is one or the other. There is a lot of gray area in this. And that's all right. We're just trying to notice it here. Yeah. In terms of our next section, the next part that we're going to be kind of focusing on is now as we've got the milestones and the challenges, what approaches did we take to the challenges in particular? Oftentimes, for me, I think about it in terms of like wins, they can teach us things. And if we give ourselves the opportunity to explore them, we can totally learn stuff. But oftentimes, the easier, quote, quote, easier one to do is thinking about your challenges and how you approached those. Because these are the things that start hindering your progress towards your goals. These are the ones that get in the way of making more progress in the future. So, what approaches did we take when we came across these challenges? Some of them are going to be good, some of them are going to be not so good. This is not an opportunity to beat yourself up. All right. We don't want to sit here and be like, oh, well, I got low motivation to do work and then I just sat there and dicked around or something like, oh, I'm the worst. No, that's not the point of this. All right. The point is to note how we responded. It is fine if it was a good response. It is fine if it was a bad response or a non-productive response. We just want to consider, well, what are my regular patterns when it comes to how I behave after facing a challenge. Okay, because again, if we notice it, if we kind of measure the fact that it's happened, take note, then we can start to tweak it and change it if it's something that doesn't actually lead us to the place that we want to go. All right, so for instance, if we think about getting into bad habits with sleep routines, like what are my like patterns of behavior when it comes to getting into those bad patterns, in terms of like the sleep routines in particular. So that could be something like, okay, often when it comes to doing work late at night, I justify it to myself in terms of like, oh, I can just sleep in tomorrow. Like that's something that very commonly happens. It's like, oh, it's fine. You pick your own schedule. You can just sleep in tomorrow. But that is kind of like a cumulative causation. It's like by going to bed late and then waking up late, it means that the next night I'm not as tired when it comes to bedtime. So I yet again go to bed late and then wake up late. So you're slowly kind of like shifting your natural waking hours to be later, which is not something that I want to do. So that is a pattern of behavior. That is an approach to my challenge that isn't a good one. It's not something that's actually benefiting me in the long run. So that could be something that I note down, and it's going to be something that I note down. If we think about something like busy periods or busy points, okay, so the way that I focus, or like rather the way that I responded to those busy points was more like a bite off more than you can chew and chew it kind of mentality. It's like, well, you got yourself into this situation, so we're going to get yourself out, which could be considered to be a good thing. It's like, grit and sticking by the commitments that you've set for yourself. That's like a good thing, 'cause especially as somebody who often has a lot of projects that they undertake and then fall off with. It's nice to actually finish things. So that could be considered to be a positive, or it could be like maybe a not so good thing in the sense that, are you working yourself to a point where it's just not sustainable? Or, you're working yourself beyond your means, you're working yourself to a point where you're not giving your body the rest that it needs and that kind of stuff. So again, could be a positive, could be a negative, could be a mixture of both. Areas of gray are totally okay here. We're just trying to pay attention to how is it that you actually typically respond to these things. Which ones do these responses actually benefit you? Okay. So in terms of the header that I'm going to write down here, I'm going to write this down as approaches to challenges. Approaches to challenges. Right. You could also consider your approaches to your wins, or like what kind of practices or habits or routines got you to accomplish those versus the ones that didn't get accomplished. I'm not going to do that right now. Um, but in terms of the approaches to the challenges, those ones are really, really powerful, and I do encourage you to pay attention to them. Yeah, see there, my ADHD brain is, rest is for the weak, and then goes, girl, you are weak, rest. See, for me, I go, rest is for the weak or rest for a week. It's like those are the two mindsets. It's either nope, we're not doing any rest, we got to be go go go, or it's a treat yourself to a full week of doing pretty much nothing. Like, so it's a bit of a flip flop kind of I don't know, practice in that, which is a little bit tricky. But let's see. Oh, let's see. New to bullet journaling and you love the channel? Yay! Your mom and sister watch together. That's cool. I'm glad to have you here and I'm glad that you enjoy the content. So, in terms of the approaches to challenges, this one again, I like to set myself a timer. We're just going to use 5 minutes. If you need more time, you can pause this video. Even if it's live, you can pause the video. It's fine. You'll catch up. So, give yourself the time to do this. Give yourself the time to consider it. You do not have to have an approach for every single challenge you wrote down. Just focus on the main ones that actually have a pattern of behavior that you can pay attention to and take note of. All right. So for me, that'll be things like comparison trap. That'll be things like the busy points. That'll be things about, I don't know, content identity crisis, which is probably a pretty unique challenge to me, but all goods. So, whichever ones you know you have certain behaviors that come up time and time again, common ways that you respond to them, or ones that you felt like the approach was particularly beneficial, it's good to note that down because you can bring that more into your repertoire moving forward. Okay. 5 minutes. Let's go now. There we go. All right. So, hopefully, in thinking about your approaches to challenges, you didn't just think about negative ones. I do find that's often where my mind initially goes to. My mind loves to beat itself up. Awful, terrible, terrible strategy. Okay. Yes, it is like helpful, I suppose, to take note of the ways that we aren't doing ourselves any favors, mainly so that then we can think about how we might change or alter that moving forward. But just as helpful is paying attention to the stuff that we did that was a good strategy, a tactic that actually helped, that actually got us further in terms of the progress we want to make. It helped, not hindered. All right, that's also good to focus on. So, in terms of the approaches to your challenges, if you have a positive one in particular, super would love to hear it, because oftentimes things that work for other people do have the potential to work for us. Not every single time, not every single one, but it's good to hear about the ways that people have been approaching their challenges in a way that is positive or has made it so that they can make more progress, right? I did get myself into a bit of a negative headspace writing this one. I did have a lot of these written down that are negative. In fact, I'm pretty sure all of them are negative. I do probably need to consider a little bit deeper the challenges that I faced, the ones that I found a workaround or something like that. But as said, that first one, I kind of like just do it energy in busy periods isn't necessarily bad. Like, I'm sticking to my guns. I'm working towards those commitments that I set for either myself or other people and stuff, and that's not a bad thing to do. But possibly, maybe it would be nice if past Jess had done a little bit more planning in that space and not completely like dumped things onto her future me problems list in terms of that span of time in particular. That would have been nice. So, other things that we can think about here is the idea that, like, I haven't been prioritizing my health routine, right? That is something that comes up time and time again. I say that this stuff is important to me, and then I let it fall to the wayside because work is easier, quote, quote. Technically not. It's just more fun in terms of the way that I see it in my mind whole. So, and because I think that it's going to be more fun, I'm more inclined to do it, which means that I do it in favor of other things that would probably take me further, faster in terms of the goals that I want to work on for myself or say that I want to work on. Anywho, another one is avoiding my journal when I'm feeling busy. That one is a constant problem, and one that I am slowly trying to work on as well. And I did find that towards the end of July in particular, actually for the entire of July, I did actually get in and use my journal even though I was busy. And that felt like an accomplishment. That felt really good. Didn't write it down on my milestones and wins because I didn't really think about it at the time. But what you can do in working on this kind of a layout is just give yourself a little bit of extra space in each of the sections so that things come up, you can go and write them down and at least it's in the right place. Or you could just like jot it to the side if you don't really care about having things in a tidy list or whatever. It's all goods. So, in terms of the approaches to challenges, what you can then do, I'm not going to right now, but what you can do is go through these and consider, well, for the ones that were positive, let's save those as something that we can try to incorporate into my routines more so moving forward. And for the ones that weren't so positive, the ones that didn't take me closer to where I want to go, how can I tweak or change the way that I approach that? So, for instance, avoiding my journal when I'm feeling busy, maybe that I can set myself in terms of those periods where I'm feeling really busy, really stressed, and I see myself getting into that mindset of, no, you don't have time to journal, you just have to take action. In those points of time, maybe I could get out my 5-minute timer or even a 2-minute timer and just write some stuff down. Maybe that should be a routine that I try and build in for myself. I can take action to work on that. If we're thinking about, trying to do the more fun secondary steps before the helpful or essential primary steps in my goal work, we kind of divert attention to the ones that feel like they're going to be easier, they're going to be more enjoyable, rather than the ones that realistically should or need to happen first, but they don't feel as exciting or enjoyable. Maybe I can think about like, well, when I see myself doing that, skipping over steps that I consider to be harder or less fun, how can I make them easier? How could I make them more fun? How can I break them down further so that they feel more approachable? That could be something that I try for myself. So going through those and just considering like, okay, for the ones that are helpful, let's try to do more of those. Let's pay attention to those and bring more of that into my strategies. But for the ones that aren't so helpful, how can we tweak or change them so that then we can, mitigate the not so ideal way we're approaching the challenges that we're facing? All right. Let's say your positive approach is doing your nightly skincare right after eating dinner instead of right before bed. That is a good approach. Yeah. I find that that's very similar for me. Like in terms of any nighttime routines, if I try and leave it right before bed, oftentimes I'm just like, nah, I'm tired. I don't care. Like, I just want to get into bed and go to sleep. Like, putting them at certain times in your kind of evening process can be really, really powerful. Let's see. You found physical activity challenge, and one positive strategy was to sign up for a couple of fun classes. Nice. I'm glad that's helping. Yeah, I it's kind of it brings a little bit of a social aspect into it, even if it's not necessarily people that you are actually talking to, like if you're not going with friends. But there is actually a lot of power in just being around people in general. So that's really cool. I'm glad to hear that you've been finding that's been fun and that it's been helping. All right. So as said, you can then break down your approaches to the challenges, consider the ones you want to do more of or lean into, consider the ones that you want to tweak or change. What we're going to do instead is consider any of the actions that were typically neglected. Okay. So, thinking about your last 3 months and the action steps that you were trying to take towards your goals, which actions in particular got repeatedly put off or not done or avoided? So, actions that were neglected. Neglected. Yes, sometimes I just need to spell the word out just to make myself make sure that it goes down on the page correctly. So for these ones, this is an opportunity to consider the stuff that we've like repeatedly put off, and also why they were put off. Okay, so we're actually going to write down two separate sections here. One of them is going to be the actions that were neglected, and then underneath this, we're going to have a why were they neglected, or they were neglected because. Okay, so if we start to pay attention to these things, if we start to kind of consider, well, I write this down on my like task list or my actions list, or I put this in my habit tracker or whatever, time and time again, but they just do not happen, then we can start to unpack that and be like, all right, well, like, why? Why is it that that isn't something that has happened? Why is it that this is the one that keeps getting delayed or put off or not accomplished or anything like that? Just so that then we can again start to combat it. All of this is very much like a problem solving approach, right? We're identifying the problems that we have, either in terms of the challenges we're facing, the actions that we're neglecting, all of that, and then thinking about, well, what can I actually do about it? Rather than just saying, like, oh, woe is me, I faced all these challenges, and that's why I didn't do anything, like game over, right? No, you got this. We're gonna make a plan. We're gonna pay attention to these things and help future us out, right? That is the idea. Also, while we're going through this, do make sure that you're having yourself a drink because we haven't had a drink break. I have actually filled up my water bottle today. Thank you for the reminder, Monica. So, Tink, all right. We want to stay hydrated, regardless of what you're hydrating with. I'm not your mother. Delicious. So, actions that were neglected, why they were neglected. All right, I'm going to give you 5 minutes for this. It might not take that long. Oftentimes, I don't have a huge amount to write down in the actions that were neglected, mainly because they fit into certain bunches of things. Like, I neglected doing my exercise. I neglected drinking my water. Hydrating with a cocktail sounds bloody fabulous. Tink to that. I would be doing that, but it is 10 a.m. on a Monday here, so I feel like even though I only have one workmate, which is Vogel, and he's not here right now, I feel like he might judge me. So, actions that were neglected, why they were neglected, or neglected because. We'll give you 5 minutes. You might not need the whole thing. You might need longer. All right, that's fine too. So, pause if you need to. We're going to get into it in 3, 2, Alrighty, so in terms of actions that were neglected, literally everything related to health. Good job. Again, not an opportunity to beat ourselves up. We're just paying attention. So, health related habits like water intake, sleep routines, all of that kind of stuff. Yes, that did kind of get not done as well as it could have. But also, marketing my goals course, I always feel a little bit uneasy about marketing. But in part of that, it's kind of like one, fear of judgment. I understand that that is certainly one of the reasons why I am not that inclined to do it. And two would probably be just like a fear of messing it up. Like, what if I try and it doesn't work? That that's a big one. What if I really pour time, effort, energy, attention into this and it doesn't pay off? Like, what if I feel like I wasted my time? So that one in terms of the marketing course, not so much in terms of the health related goals, because oftentimes I don't get a feeling of like, oh, well, what if I wasted my time in terms of exercising? I know that even if I don't see a payoff from it, it is technically happening. I know that my body is like, yay, you got out of your chair. Like, even if it's not something that has a, I don't know, visible payoff, I suppose. Other things that were reasons or like, why things were neglected was stuff like, I just felt restricted by things. These habits that I was trying to build for myself, I felt like I was trying to like strive to a certain level where I was just not like prepared to meet it, especially in terms of water intake, because drinking 2 liters of water a day is quite challenging for me. That's like quite a lot of water to the extent where I would get to the end of the day and felt like so waterlogged that I'm like, I am a puddle. But another one was busy periods. And this is something that comes up a lot because life is busy. We're busy people. I very much feel the effect of busyness, but I often use this as an excuse to that's like the first thing that I cut and use busyness as an excuse is my physical health. Is not taking care of myself in terms of like nutrition, water, sleep, exercise, that kind of thing. So I've also noted down this is the next section we're going to be writing down. And this one we're not going to use a timer for. We're just going to kind of brainstorm as we go through as we chat. And it's just the lessons that you learned, right? I use this as kind of just like a very quick snapshot summary of considering like the approaches to challenges, the things that were neglected, why we neglected them, what did this stuff actually teach us. In terms of your lessons learned, this can also be positives. It can be related to your milestones and wins. So it could be like, learning lessons about way to make things easier, way to make things more likely to happen, all of that kind of stuff. I do often find though that the lessons learned are reflected in the negative things, the things that didn't really help, didn't really get me to where I wanted to go, probably because of a negativity bias. It's all good as long as I'm learning. It's also a good thing to note that if you do this repeatedly, if you do this process at the end of every quarter, you are probably going to learn the same things repeatedly, and that's fine. All right. I am a big believer, and sometimes we need to learn things twice or thrice or 4 times. It's just the universe effectively telling us, like, knock, knock, hello, please pay attention to it. And eventually, one day, we'll get to a point where we, turn things around on that. And it's all right if it takes us a while. Okay. We're allowed to be learners. We're allowed to take our time with these things. So, lesson that I have learned, as said, busy is a bad excuse and it is a go to bad excuse. And I would like to work towards not using that as an excuse or saying, yes, busy, but da 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 da. Like, sure, life is hectic right now, but I'm still going to go do the thing. All right. Yes, Missa, you did make it. Hello. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. So, in terms of other lessons that I learned, is that I think that fear holds me back more than I have really ever kind of admitted to myself. I don't consider myself to be a super fearful person. Like I don't think that when I, approach these challenges and stuff and I don't take action on them, I don't think my immediate concern is fear. Normally the idea of fear is masked with terms like I don't know, unenthusiasm or low motivation or perfectionism. That's a big one. I think that perfectionism is literally just fear, like with a mustache and glasses on and a hat and a long coat or something. Oftentimes, the reason that we procrastinate on these things, the reason that we put stuff off is because it's our body's way of trying to protect us from something. And oftentimes that protection comes with a lot of fear, even if it's not necessarily the way that we kind of identify it. Yeah. So we're going to put that down. Fear holds me back more often than I've previously noticed. Right? So that could be a fear of messing up, a fear of messing or missing out, yeah, like FOMO. Could be a fear of judgment, a fear of failure, a fear of I don't know, just like things not paying off, fear of wasted time, like any of these, fear of wasted resources. It doesn't need to be time. It could be like energy, money, anything like that. Um, it could be a fear of ridicule, judgment, all of that kind of stuff. All right, like these all get wrapped up in a bunch of different ways, and they all get kind of like presented in different ways in our life. But perfectionism is the biggest thing that I think that fear comes disguised as for me. And it's because I want to do a good job, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to do a good job. Like good job on caring. Wow, what a negative trait. Caring about the outcome. Pff, no, all right. It's good to care, but we don't want fear to hold us back from taking action and actually going out and achieving the things that we're striving for. Okay? So, whatever your lessons are, they don't necessarily have to be the same as mine. They might be different, but consider what this that we've done so far teaches you about yourself, right? These are the kind of like big snapshot overarching themes, I guess you could say, from the other stuff that we've written down thus far. Okay, so in terms of lessons that I learned last time, I wrote down that I need to have better options for go to lazy eats because I was finding myself eating a lot of takeout during that time. Um, again, like busy periods, one of the first things that gets neglected is me taking care of myself in terms of physical health. And one of those is just opting for takeout because it's like safe. I know what to expect from that. Another thing that I learned from last time was that if it's not on the actions list, it isn't going to happen. So I've had a lot of periods in the first quarter, like, first 3 months of the year, where I would set up my actions list, but then not actually populate it. If it doesn't get written on the actions list, I usually don't take action on it. So making sure that that's written in is really valuable. Uh, and then the other one was accountability is key. And I did find success with accountability this quarter when I used it. And I want to make more use of accountability and be accountable or be an accountability buddy for other people more in this quarter in particular. Which means if you're part of Epic Goals, the Epic Goals Club in particular, where we have like our little kind of membership community, I will be your accountability buddy in there. Right? I want to hold you to account to the things that you've said that are valuable or important to you. And I want to make sure that you get the stuff done that you're hoping for. Okay, so lessons learned. The next thing to think about is that, okay, we're moving into quarter three based on the stuff that we've learned about ourselves. Is there anything that we want to try? Is there anything that we want to change? So we're going to put this down as trying or changing. I encourage you to not change too much at once, mainly because oftentimes the body rebels against change. Rebel brain kicks in as like, heck to the nah, I liked the status quo, even if the status quo was kind of lame. So trying and changing. It's this idea like, okay, if we take the takeout as an example, right? Like changing the way that I approach food is super daunting. Very, very struggle bus moments for me. It's gonna be hard, but that doesn't mean that the place I'm at with food is like a good place to stay, right? So it's kind of that idea of like, here's here we are at the bottom of the hill. We need to get to like the top of the hill or like after the hill where it's like a green pasture of better eating or whatever. And it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of work for me to get to a point where that becomes the status quo, but it's work that is worth doing, all right? So things that I'm trying or changing. But anywho, in terms of things that I wanted to try in that space, the biggest thing I think that I want to try or change in the upcoming quarter is focusing more on introductory steps to goals, or like goal actions. So rather than saying like, drink 2 liters of water a day, which I did do successfully for a period of at least 2 weeks in a row. Rather than saying that that's the goal, I want to focus on the small introductory step before that goal, like well before that goal. So I think that will be things like fill my water bottle. Like on the daily, make sure that my water bottle is filled at the start of the day, rather than making it so that eating healthy is the thing that I'm really kind of trying to focus on, which is like technically it is the outcome that I want, but rather than focusing on having like 5 to 7 serves of fruit and veg a day or whatever, maybe the thing that I focus on is just having all of my meals planned at the start of the week. So that means breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So not necessarily sticking to the plan yet, not even holding myself to account to do that, but it's like that really small introductory thing. So I'm going to be focusing on getting the starting steps down. And this one comes into play with the one that we had up here, which is that idea of I'm more inclined to try and do the fun or secondary steps before the helpful or essential primary steps. So I want to try and make it so that then I'm really focusing on those smaller like starting kind of practices when it comes to building these habits. So for the water, like we said, rather than drink 2 liters, it's fill the water bottle. Rather than eating healthy meals, it is planning meals. They don't even have to be healthy meals. I just want to plan the meals first, right? Getting into the practice or habit of actually making sure that I'm planning meals. And then once that's done, I can make sure that I'm eating the meals that I planned. If I plan to have, pizza one night and McDonald's another, like, sure, that's not necessarily where I want to be, but it's going to lead me up to where I want to be. That idea of I plan and I actually eat what I plan, and then I plan something that's better for me. That kind of makes sense, right? So that's what I'm going to be trying on changing. Now, the next thing to think about, now as we've kind of gone through and done all of this soul searching for the last quarter, because we thought about like what were we working on, what milestones did we accomplish, challenges we faced, what we learned from those challenges, all of that good stuff. What do you want to work on in the next quarter? What kind of goals do you have for quarter 3? I would love to hear about your goals for quarter 3. I think that for me, ones that are still in progress, they're going to be continued on. Some of them will be like actively worked on, the ones that I'm going to be setting intentions and actions for and all of that kind of stuff. So that'll be something like my weight loss goal. And then possibly other ones, they're not necessarily going to be worked on actively, but they are just going to happen. So for instance, helping mum and dad for their move. I do have another trip to Melbourne planned for that, but it's not something that I really have to do a lot of work for outside of being there to help them when I am there. So that one's not going to get an action plan in this journal. But I would love to hear, what is it that you're planning on working on? I'm going to flip on over. And I've already got a line in here. And in terms of that first goal that I have for myself, so this one is going to be, we'll just write lose weight. Give it a little, that's loose. I keep doing this. I keep writing loose weight instead of lose weight, but it's fine. S-E, there we go. This is again me trying to be less precious with this journal. Okay. And so, like, technically speaking, the goal is not just lose weight in general. It is like, lose weight in a way that doesn't completely ruin my body or whatever. But I find that having a very simple title, something kind of snappy and easy to remember, is usually better. Like, sure, you could set yourself, oh God, I hate smart goals so much. You could set yourself a smart goal and be like, oh, I want to lose 5 kilos using the keto diet by October 25th. Doing cardio 3 times a week and weightlifting 2 times a week, or like whatever. You can make it like super specific, super measurable, blah, blah, blah. Ugh, boo hiss. Actually, one, remembering that statement, way too hard. And it just doesn't really spark joy. It's not like snappy. I find that if you have a goal that is worded in a way that doesn't resonate with you, you're not going to do it, right? So we want to do something that is just easy, snappy to remember. Oftentimes like plays into, connected to a sense of like who we want to be as a person and all of this kind of stuff. We notably go into more detail with how to write goals in the Epic Goals course. So if you want to get involved, we would love to have you. I would love to see you there. Helping people work on their goals is something I'm very passionate about. But let's see. Your goals are to boom, organize my apartment. Nice. Be more active. Are goals that will be consistent. They will look very different. Yeah, completely understand how different times of the year, even in the quarter, is going to give us different things to work on. Let's see. Goal is to rehearse singing daily. I love that. Been singing for years and still have a lot to learn. Nice. That's cool. I haven't been singing as much as I would like recently. Not that I'm like, setting that as a goal for myself or like training or anything like that. I just enjoy doing it. But because I don't go out as much anymore, and where I would usually sing would be in the car, I don't do it as much as I have previously, which is kind of a bummer. Let's see. Working on getting daily maintenance routines for yourself and your home really solidified. Excellent idea. I think that one of my loose goals is going to be not one that I probably write down, more so something that's very like background in terms of my life, is going to be something about home routines or like just keeping the space tidier, because I find that if you've watched any of my videos, you probably know how messy my desk is, and pretty much like it's just a constant state of disarray, and it's getting to the point where I'm like, this is stupid. I want to reorganize my office completely, so that's probably something that I write down here. Actually, you know what? We're gonna flip over. We're gonna commit that as a goal by writing it into this notebook. If you're wondering, like, what is this notebook? This is my goals journal. We have a setup video for it on the channel, but it's effectively where I can jot down and plan my goals and such. I have used the wrong color pen here, but it's fine. Nobody will know except for you and I and anybody who watches this on the replay. It's not super noticeable. It's fine. But I really want to redo my office because as it stands, okay, so if we think about this in terms of a layout from where we're sitting right now, right in front of me is the camera that I use for the podcast. Right above me is the camera that I use for like any top-down videos. We have my microphone right here, point, but then my computer screens are off to the side. So when I want to do work here and face forward to do my work, I then have to tilt this way to look at my computer screens, and that's really awkward. It's also awkward because there's a light source right behind my computer screens. So I can't really use my computer very well with the curtain open, which means my constant like state of being in this office is like a gremlin in the dark. My curtains are constantly closed because otherwise I just can't look at my computer for too long because the screen, like, it's not even screen glare because it's behind the screen. Whatever. Doesn't matter. So reorganize, I guess. Yep. Reorganize my office. Because it's something that I've been talking about doing for the past like month and a half or whatnot, and it's just gotten to a point where I feel like it would spark a lot of joy to go through it. As part of that reorganization of my office, I'm going to want to do like a big washi tape declutter. I think we should just do a washi tape declutter next week. That'd be fun. Like, I've just got too many tapes. Like, I have 3 full drawers of tape, and I am finding that the rest of it is just stacking up behind me. I'm looking at it now. It's such a mess. I feel like I want to show it to you, but I don't have an easy way to do that. Let's see. There we go. I'll just take a little picky. I can show you on my computer. What's this thing called? My phone. There we go. See? It's all just stacked up right there because I have not got anywhere for it to go. So it's just becoming like a little like pile tower. It's not ideal. I would like to fix that. But in terms of setting your goals, whatever it is you want to work on, completely up to you. If you have something that you would love to share, though, I would love to hear about it. Let me know in the comments what it is that you're planning on working on. I'm going to have to spend some time today kind of breaking these goals down, thinking more about how it is I'm actually going to action them, get them done. But if you want to see more goal-related journal content on the channel, then the playlist here is the next one to check out. Thank you so much for being here. Such a pleasure to have you here as always. And until next time, bye.